say your name, please respond with here. Cook.
Here.
Fowler.
Here.
Lambers.
Here.
Nieves is absent. Berlinski is absent. Shea is absent. I'm also here. So we have a quorum. So the first order is approving the meeting minutes from both the regular meeting of August 3rd and then the special meeting that we held on August 10th at the firehouse. So if anybody had any questions or any changes that they wanted to make to either of those, this would be a good time to make those. Otherwise, if everybody's read them, if somebody wants to pass a motion or wants to motion to approve, we could head that route.
I'll move to approve both minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I also say aye. All those opposed say no. So the meeting minutes pass. Hey,
Hey, John.
Hello.
how are you?
Good.
So the second order on the agenda is opportunity for public comment. So I bet that everybody is here for a specific project. So, okay, good. So then hold until we're talking about your project, but if anybody is here for something else, then it would be an opportunity to say that, but since there isn't, we'll just move it right along. Which brings us to the first order for new business, and that is for 237 West 11th Street for Michael and Katie Collins. And so,
Yes, how are you?
good, how are you?
I'm not bad now.
Good, come on up here if you'd
All right.
like. Yeah,
Where do you want me to, here?
wherever you'd like to be.
All right, thanks. Nice to meet you all.
Hi.
You too. Anna, do you want to give just a kind of a brief update of what the project is, and then Mr. Collins can fill in for us?
Absolutely. So we last saw the Collins back in June for the back egress window on their home. And they are back with us today to discuss replacing their basement windows, which are currently glass black. And they provided a couple of different options for what they would like to replace the glass back with. In addition to replacing sort of the units the size that they are, they would also like to convert one of the windows to an egress. So that's what we've got going on today, and I'm happy to scroll through some of the materials if you'd like, and Mr. Collins, if you'd like to fill in anything, please go ahead.
I did see, Anna, that you had included in there also something, an update from the Preservation Society related to materiality.
Yes. So at the last meeting in August, we also had fiberglass composite windows come up, and there was a discussion of their longevity as opposed to wood, and if there had been any sort of recent updates on that. And so in preparation for this meeting, I kind of poked around to see what I could find and wanted to share that with all of you. As we discussed then, it proved to be true that it seems to still be the whole, we don't have enough time. They haven't been around long enough for us to know. However, this piece from the Alliance Review kind of talked about using, talking about them in relation to other materials. And so, unfortunately, other man-made materials, I should say, it didn't seem to answer the questions we had previously, but it at least shows that, you know, people are working on it. And so.
And were these fiberglass composites the wood and fiberglass composite? Because it was kind of called out, so that was kind of interesting that they were talking about the wood fiberglass composite.
I am not sure. Let's see.
Oh, there it would be maybe in the.
Yeah, 40%.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, then this is the one that I read that was a partial wood and partial polymer.
Are these the same line of windows that we had approved for the back of the house?
They're very similar. They have a wider style to match that,
Okay.
where the vinyl is a much narrower one, and we don't want to do the vinyl. And because of the size of the windows in the basement, well, it would match the rest of the windows, the frame of the window, just as far as dimensional, you know. And it's just we don't want to put in vinyl into the house for sure, you know, it's a historic house.
Right.
And we don't want to put wood, because our experience of wood is rot and all that, and a lot of snow build up and stuff, it's just.
Especially with the way your windows are kind of set down in, it's kind of interesting how they have
Yeah.
a little bump out, so they don't come all the way down to the ground, they actually go below because of the
Exactly,
way the
so then-
concrete,
Yeah, them wells are going to get filled with snow and, you know,
yeah.
we just want something sturdy, you know, that's not vinyl.
Well, and anytime anyone wants to replace their glass block with something else,
Yeah.
we're thrilled, so let's just start with
Start with a
that.
thank you for
Yeah,
removing
thank
glass
you.
block, that's a
Yeah.
real plus for us, that's
And plus we want natural light in the basement too.
certainly. And then is it the northernmost window that becomes the well, is that,
East, south. I think that, is that west?
yeah,
Yeah, west,
That's north.
facing,
your house faces south,
so it's this side.
right, it's on the east side of the house.
East side, yes.
And the one that you want to make a well is the furthest,
Yes, this one.
Back on the property, so.
Toward the
it's,
back.
yeah.
Yes,
and it's almost a complete lot next to you there. I mean,
That's
you're
right.
quite a ways back from the street.
that's correct,
In
yeah.
fact, it's a puzzle because I walked back the other day
Yeah.
to see if you were there.
Yeah.
And your neighbor's garage looks like it's right next to your house.
Oh, I know, it's.
But your lot cuts around behind there.
I know, something was written in years ago where he was able to
Yeah.
come back.
I wonder if it was relatives or something. And
Probably.
he said, put your garage here, go ahead.
I think the guy that owned it 20 years ago owned that house next door too.
Yeah,
I
he
think
did.
that's what
That
it was.
happens
Sure,
a lot,
sure.
that's like Jennifer's
Yeah.
house. So the only one that's really changing size is the one for the egress window, otherwise it's a,
Well, that's not the actual window, it's the one in the bay.
right, but the one that
Yeah.
will be the egress window is the only one that's truly changing size, because it'll be large enough to be, is that
Yeah,
right?
as, I have to just widen the opening 3 inches, so inch and a half each side, to be legally 5.7 square feet.
That's 3 inches of a lot of work, I'm sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Might as well be a mile, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm capable of it. I was there all day today working, so tired.
Mhm.
But yeah, the glass block.
I know. We have it on ours and I wish we didn't.
Mhm.
And then the other option was to put vents in there, you know, in the windows, because there's no circulation down there either,
Mhm.
so.
I think that when glass block was popular, it was more security than anything else, because they're very robust, right? But other than secure and unable to be tampered with, they don't have much to recommend them.
I think too, they were also great for if you needed to have a vent outlet or if you needed to have something else, because it was easy to just take that
Take
little.
one block
Take
out.
one block
Sure,
out and
sure.
make it into that versus having to have the whole opening. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Collins? It seems pretty straightforward to me, but I don't know
It does.
if anybody else has any questions.
Have you decided whether, are any of the windows gonna be sliders versus, whatever the other option, casement
Yep.
windows, or?
Yes, the sliders, the casement would have the wood in there. That's what the Lou Lumber recommended. This particular window would be the best. It's a slider.
Okay, so all the windows are gonna be sliders, or just the egress window, or?
Oh, the egress would be, I think the egress is a.
Casement,
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah, to open all the way up so you
Yes.
can.
Okay,
yeah, that's the one that the Lou was recommending there, this one.
that's a casement window that opens out, or the?
Oh, no, that's the sliders for the.
Slider, okay.
And then the casement is.
The casement was for the egress,
Oh, you
and then
found
it
it.
said the 4 fixed or sliding windows,
Yeah,
so
so
Yeah.
I
have
have the specs for either a fixed
you,
unit
or the
or
slider.
sliding.
Have you landed on which you like?
Oh, I'd rather slide into that area. For the smaller windows around the house?
Yeah,
Yeah, this one for here.
the
for sure.
slider.
Yeah, the slider. fixed one, we could put the fixed one in, but I just don't think, you know, it's nice to open up the windows and.
And we're still talking about basement windows only?
Yes,
on
correct.
this? Okay,
Yes.
okay. But everything above grade would be a double hung window? And,
Yes, correct.
okay.
But they're so low to the ground, it's so hard
You're
to.
hardly seeing them.
Yeah.
So how are you gonna handle I'm curious how you're gonna handle, because the picture that you included for the egress window.
Yes.
As an example of a home that must be nearby, it has like a grate over the top of it, but the window
We can
was
put it-
level with the ground, and yours won't be, yours will be above.
There'll be a header going across it,
Okay,
a little 2x10 header. Yeah, like that there, but a little header.
right, it'll be up higher because of,
And then we'll probably do the same thing with some shrubs and stuff, exactly like that.
So does that thing just flip up then, that,
The grate, yeah,
the
you
cover?
just lift it up. There's two versions, there's the plastic one too,
Hmm.
just a complete lid altogether.
Interesting.
So I would want to sink it down level with the ground, so that would mean I'd have to put a little header there, so
Mhm.
that wouldn't stick up. Yeah, the actual well.
So when you say a header, you mean outboard, out here on the,
Like right here, so it would be just a little header right across
oh,
here.
okay,
Just to hold it.
okay.
Yeah.
because the window extends above
It's a little
the
bit
ground
higher.
level.
That was just an example. It's the only thing I could find as far as in the picture.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, so basically, be a header right here,
Okay.
and blend with the siding, and then the window would be here.
And so what's your header gonna be made out of?
Or double 2x12. Or 2x10, I'm sorry.
2x10.
And then there'd be a little trim around it. To make it nicer.
Ready for a motion?
I don't know if someone else has questions that they would like to ask.
I'd like to move to approve the application for certificate of appropriateness as submitted and per testimony for the replacement of 5 basement windows at 237 West 11th Street based on local guidelines and the Secretary of Interior Standard 9. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials to characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment.
A second?
Anybody have any comments before I take roll? Okay. Cook,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Lambers,
Yes.
Jonas is absent, Rolinski is absent, Shay,
Yes.
and Ike, I also approve, so the motion carries. COA is granted.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Appreciate it.
coming and going through what you're talking about your process. It helps.
Oh, yeah.
Great, all right. Anna will have that, or Mallory will have it shortly,
Yes.
within the next couple of days.
Yes.
Yeah, the city they went ahead and gave me building permits,
Mhm.
to do everything inside, and that part is on hold until if it was approved. So
Right,
they'll probably look into it in a few days to see.
it'll only take a couple of days to
Okay.
get the COA signed into you.
And we'll let the building department know tomorrow morning so they can even probably start getting things moving
Oh,
faster.
fantastic, okay.
Yep. We'll make
All right.
sure.
Thanks for everything you're doing there. It's
Oh,
really
look.
gonna be nice.
Thank you guys, I'm totally all for keeping it historic looking and, you know. I was over there today, the amount of old little bottles I found in the.
Oh, isn't that fun?
Yeah. you know.
I bet you found some crazy stuff. Amy's probably found some absolutely crazy things in houses too.
Inside the walls or what?
And under the porch,
Okay.
you know, I had to dig it out and put a footing there, you know.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy, like old plates and silver spoons, you know.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I held on to them all. You know, it was crazy. And then inside we were finding bits of newspaper and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, that's always fun.
You know, just held on to them, put them in a little case.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
We found a newspaper from a big University of Michigan Ohio State game.
Really?
And so it was in the wall of an addition that had been put on at some point in the 50s. It's kind of funny.
That's interesting for sure. A lot of bit of history inside there.
Yep.
Okay, well, we're all set. We'll
All right,
get it to you.
appreciate it. Thanks very much, everybody.
You bet.
Thank
Have
you.
a good rest of your day.
All right, you too now. I'm gonna head back to Chicago now.
Drive
All right.
safe.
Thanks
Hopefully
very much.
avoid the
Take care.
storms. Great.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So, the next one is item B, and that was for 240 West 9th Street for Jordy and Karen Fuentes. And I'm assuming you're here, Amy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, Amy.
How are ya?
Good.
Yes.
So you wanna give it an overview,
Yes.
Anna, of what it is, and then we can dive in with Amy?
Yeah, so we're all pretty familiar with this project. Amy's here today to talk about switching what had been discussed about the supportings for the front porch on the home. Previously had been discussed doing a poured wall foundation, if I remember correctly, and then instead it needs to be 3 separate piers, and so just discussing that change with all of you.
Because that just then affects what that skirting has to be, right? Since it
Yes.
won't actually be a wall underneath there, it needs some way to kind of hide the
Yeah.
footings.
Yep. Yeah. So it was originally always going to be the 3 piers and then a poured concrete flat wall in between those piers. And on paper that worked great. And then when we lifted the house up, it wasn't going to work so great. So the drawing on the right shows that nothing changes with the 3 piers. It's just the skirting that now makes more sense to do that out of wood instead of a poured wall. So we provided some pictures of what we're talking about. That, yeah, Jeff Burke's, the one on the top left there, probably is the closest in that it's just a straight slat, no turning or anything like that, and then a picture frame kind of look around it. So
I thought it was super straightforward. I mean, I
Yeah.
personally really like the skirting, and I like that it's simple, so it doesn't detract from everything else going on with the home. I think it's a nice way to handle it, and it seems
yep.
pretty simple to me.
And those piers are staying the same material we had approved before and everything. Yeah, I think the skirts are better than the portal foundation from our standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's gonna look really nice. It's just a little extra zhuzh on the house. It's gonna look good.
Yep.
I can't make a motion, so that's the one thing.
It's not my turn.
It's-
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's all stuff.
Oh, yes. Let me scroll back up.
That's always a little more helpful.
Here we go.
Alright, I'll move to approve the application for a certificate of appropriateness as submitted in for testimony for the proposed changes at 240 West 9th Street as proposed based on the local guidelines and the Secretary of Interior Standard Number 9. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy the historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architecture features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment.
Support.
Support.
Any additional comments before we throw it to a vote? Okay, when I call your name, say approve or deny. Cook,
Approve.
Fowler,
Approve.
Lambers,
Approve.
Nieves is absent, Berlinski is absent, Shay,
Approve.
Ike, I also approve, so motion carries.
Right.
It's gonna look great.
Yeah.
It's really fun. My son's been dying to metal detect over there.
Oh, yeah.
Fall in the hole.
No, he'll stay out of the hole. He's just been dying. He's like, do you think I can come? Like, just,
We
I'm like,
haven't
stay away
found
back
anything
here. Yeah.
exciting metal-wise.
You might be surprised with all the streets being dug up. He has found a lot of coins from before the fire, and he's
Oh, really?
found original large cents,
Huh.
and he's found some really unique. He's
Oh,
found some
cool.
pretty amazing stuff just in the streets. So that's been kind of a fun. That's been his summer activity. Yeah, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Anyway,
Thanks,
thank you.
Amy.
Yep, bye.
Take it easy.
Thanks.
All right, third up is a COA application for 300 South River Avenue for the library. So what is the latest and greatest? You found something you didn't expect.
Well, I
Maybe-
think-
Maybe you did
What a
expect it.
surprise.
Yeah, I mean, we expected it, but we don't talk about it until we find it.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
That's great.
that
So-
shall not be named until it's uncovered.
Yeah.
I get it.
So the old canopy, was leaning heavily. It was cantilevered off the building. It was leaning heavily. We did see some of the stress cracks in the limestone. We were hoping that all they were was cracks, but once we took off that old canopy, we found pretty much baseball-sized holes where the old one was fastened.
Was
and
that
those-
because of when you took it off, you found that it just kind of deteriorated?
Yeah, they probably drilled about 3/4 inch holes for the through bolts originally through the limestone. And then over time, it just, instead of burying its weight on the steel inside, it buried its weight right on the limestone.
And that limestone's not very thick either, from what I understand.
No, so most typical limestone cladding would be 4 inches. That's what you find. This was 1.5 inches.
Jeez.
Limestone veneer.
Yeah, and we,
Yeah, good.
this was scheduled to be done the 1st of July.
Yeah.
And I spent about a month just calling around all over the country to see if someone could manufacture this. We thought about cost for the library, but also we wanted to have it look original as much as we could. No one's taking the risk of even making it really anymore. I called the original company. They don't even have that division of their company anymore. So maybe they had a lawsuit at some point. I don't know. But
This might not be the only one with that problem.
yeah. So, our next thing was we talked about doing some precast to match. Again, same thickness issue. And really the panels are, in the drawings, it wasn't really spelled out how they were fastened. It just said the fastening would be determined by installers, which isn't a great thing. There was no as-built for the fastening of the panels. So we assumed that they were held, there was fasteners that held them on, but also they were held on by the panels below. So as these were the second panels from the ground, we're worried that if we take that off, we don't know what's gonna happen above.
Right.
So, after talking to a lot of people, our best option that we could come up with is we're gonna have flashing that extended above the canopy 6 to 8 inches into the building. So to cover the major damage above the canopy, that flashing instead of 6 to 8 would be about 12 to 14 inches to cover the main damage.
And you'll see that on the outside of the building.
You'll see it, so the flashing is gonna be rubberized flashing, and then we're gonna cover it with a metal, brake metal to match the canopy itself. It'll be
And I
painted.
can't remember that was angled, if I remember.
Yep, it's just gonna be,
Right? It
yep, it's
was,
just gonna flash down and just
Yeah.
have a small drip edge on
Okay.
the canopy.
yep,
Most of that black will be gone once we power wash it. We're hoping it's gonna deteriorate. That's just from splashback.
yeah.
That shouldn't happen now that we're putting once this all gets done and approved, we're gonna put an actual, roof on the canopy, it won't splash as much. Before it was just the corrugated, so it splashed all over the building. And we did find in the basement of the library, original patch kit for Indiana limestone. So they took the same limestone that they used on the building, ground it up, and they just basically gave them a small patch kit. It's not enough to do huge holes, but those cracks going up the building,
Yeah,
I have a mason that can go in there, grind out a little bit of it, and those cracks should vanish in reality. So that's for the above portion of it. Below, there's just about 4 to 5 inches below. That's
And is that in
also-
the next photo? Sorry,
Yeah.
can you scroll that, is that,
Yep, so that,
that's what you're intending
That's the
to?
proposal.
That's the proposed, because I think that's what's there now, right?
yes. So yeah, the proposal, I mean, that was, I just put a rectangle.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
So that's what's there now. Again, it's gonna get power washed. A lot of that is gonna clean out, that's just dirt. But there are some fractures in the limestone. And I'm worried, we don't wanna do too much because it could start falling down. Just those small chunks, kinda like what we have already have fallen. So we're proposing to use that same flashing metal underneath, and we'll basically do a reverse flashing underneath, and it will cover, really both things from the road. We kind of took pictures. You're not gonna see much of it because just the way the canopy is, it sticks out to where you're not gonna see much above and below, so. But that's what we could come up with, but it's all gonna be painted to match the existing canopy that we installed, and so yeah, it's kind of where we're at. And in this picture, the gutter hasn't been put on yet because we didn't want to put anything on that we'd have to take off and potentially do more damage, so. And then everything's getting a new coat of paint, a second coat of paint on it too.
So the flashing underneath is going to be that same rubberized, or it's gonna be?
It's not gonna, it's just gonna be the metal cover,
is-
yeah.
Cover is okay, is that, okay.
Yep.
And it'll just get painted to match the.
Yep,
rest
it'll be
of
the same color as the canopy. And the door is also the same color as the
Right.
canopy. Yeah, when those guys called me when they took it off, my heart kind of was like, this.
I was afraid of that.
Not what
Yeah.
you hoped.
Yeah, and really, I don't know if they should have cored those holes, or they really, I mean, I think when they put the canopy in, they basically used a hammer drill, which is almost like a gunshot wound. You know, the front looked okay, but on the back side it
It was
was
blown out.
blown out. so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate,
Mhm.
but. So luckily, you know, 20 years down the road, if this canopy ever has to be replaced, nothing is bearing on the building anymore, so there's no more stress on it.
I mean, I can't, for those of you with more of an architecture background, I can't really think of another way to solve this without a lot of involvement with the building that would be undesirable and spendy.
Yeah, and I spoke with, I forgot what his name is on the board.
Nick?
Nick.
Nick, and he, I mean, this was his suggestion too.
Mhm.
He, I mean, we basically said repair where we can,
Yeah.
and we don't want to repair with a limestone that wouldn't match.
No.
So, we're gonna repair with that patch kit where we can, and then where we can't, that's where, he's basically said cover with an appropriate material.
That was a nice find, I'm sure. I mean, the patch kit find,
Yeah,
having
right.
just
Yeah,
a little
I was in
bit.
contact with the library for a long time, and finally one of the maintenance guys who's been there forever was like, you know what, I think there's a box down there that says Indiana limestone, and sure enough, that's what it's for. But,
So what's your timeline now, if you get your COA?
I'm hoping to be done. I mean, just depending on where the roofer is, I'm putting that roof on, not the roof, but the flashing and everything on.
Right.
It'll be done by the end of September,
Oh,
for
okay,
sure.
that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
I don't know, it seems straightforward to me. I don't know if anybody else has
Yeah.
any additional questions. I mean, it looks, you're being thoughtful in the way you're treating it.
Mhm.
I don't know how else, I have no suggestions for how you would do that differently. It makes sense.
Yeah, the precast concrete was an option, but there's just so many unknowns, and we don't want to cause more damage.
Yeah, it's like the fewer things you introduce, probably the better.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on that principle, it seems to me like standard 6 might be the
And that's what I was thinking.
more appropriate of the two.
The 9, yeah.
I mean, 9 would work.
But I think 6 is the right one. But I don't know, you guys, the rest of you agree?
Yeah. Yep.
Any Anybody game for making a stab at it since?
Yeah, I'll move to, let's see, I guess to approve of application for a COA as submitted and per testimony for the project at 300 River Avenue. Based on local guidelines and Secretary of Interior Standard Number 6, deteriorated historic features will be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of distinctive feature, the new feature will match the old in design, color, texture, and where possible materials. Replacement of missing features will be substantiated by documentary and physical evidence.
Support.
Any other comments before I call roll? Okay. Approve or deny when I call your name, please. Cook,
Approve.
Fowler,
Approve.
Lammers,
Approve.
Nieves is absent, Valensky is absent, Shay,
Approve.
Ike, I also approve, so motion carries, COA is granted.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. The library's gonna really appreciate it too.
Well,
Well, I'm sure this was not what they had planned, so.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, I mean, you know, it's, money is unfortunately a thing for the library, and this is
Sure.
a good option for all ways, I think, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you so much.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing it in.
Yep.
Guys, we're like rocking and rolling tonight.
Yes.
I know, I'm like, holy moly, I'm getting cookies.
Cookie break.
I know, I'm feeling accomplished.
the snacks have improved since Anna came.
Yeah, seriously, Oreos. Oh, the Oreos are not bad. I love the Oreos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with
I
Oreos.
saw when you pulled those out and I'm like, oh no. Oh, no, no, no.
Actually, somebody else in our department just went to Sam's Club and got big bulk of everything, so now we just have lots of cookies. So
Oh, that's so nice.
works for me, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Anna, you've got a hit list of administrative approval stuff, don't you?
Yes, so just to quick clarify, there was a fourth business item that Dan Tyler let me know didn't need to be on the agenda. It was great for the construction company, and so we that was the
There-
one amendment that we had today. And then yes, lots and lots of administrative reviews this past month, strange administrative reviews.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was pretty straightforward. That was for a fence at 210 West 12th Street. They are just filling in. They had partial fencing. They're filling in where there's not fence and taking down and replacing what was there. I believe it was dog-eared. Yes, and no concerns on my side. Then our next one was for Holt Church. Due to the current public health crisis, they would like to put a temporary tent canopy up on their lawn, or they have, and this wasn't something it seems like we'd ever run across before. I did reach out to the preservation planner in Grand Rapids, who shared what they've been doing, and also spoke to Kim and John briefly, and decided to go ahead with an administrative approval because it's completely temporary, it's not affecting the structure at all. We did discuss that this sort of COA approval is for this year, and then next year, if they find they want to do the same thing, then they'll come back and ask for another one.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I think that is the right way to handle it. Otherwise, it just leaves things open-ended, which is not good.
Yes, and so this has a set end date of October for this one, at the end of October. And then they have to do the same thing with the permit. This size tent requires a permit from the city as well, so it works out nicely for everyone.
Great.
And then at the same time, with someone different at Hope Church, we also received a request for replacing the wall sign on the side of the building. It's the one that right now says who the pastors are, when the worship times are. They're replacing it with a sign that looks almost exactly the same, just updated information. It's the same materials, hanging in the same spot. I clarified that they're not going to be doing anything to the brick wall that's behind it. And that's how that one went.
Cool.
So that's a fun new avenue for you.
Yeah. Yeah,
And-
random. I mean, we see fences all the time, but like, you've had some really random ones. I mean, way to trial by fire here for you.
Thank you for your help also, but giving your
Yeah, always.
suggestions and everything, because we, in the office were like, oh, again.
Yeah, I got another weird one, yeah.
Mhm. It's funny that tent at Hope now kind of looks like it belongs there at the church. They put it in an angle and, you know, it looks fine, but I'm glad to have weighed in on it a little bit.
So I know I still owe you feedback on one thing, but the other thing that was on the list was the review from the city attorney
Yes.
about the firehouse and kind of what I'm sure you can give us an update on what's going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you all know, we did not have the second special meeting a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, JP Smith, who is the potential buyer in the building, didn't have things entirely work out on his end in time with his investors in order to put a motion in, or not a motion, well, yes, a motion to a option to purchase the property, which you'll see in Ron Vanderveen's notes that that's something he said needed to happen before we could kind of go forward with something more formal, especially on the city council side of things. So that is what happened on that end, and we just, canceled the meeting, and I haven't heard from him since, so I will, of course, let all of you know if this comes back up again. I know he said he wasn't sure how long it would take to be able to come back to us. But I wanted to bring what the city attorney said to all of you, because even if this property doesn't go to the current party, it's probably going to come up eventually, and not all of this is specific to that. There were a couple of things that in the discussion stood out to me, and I'm glad that he included them here, which is with the deed restrictions and covenant, the Historic District Commission is not expected to provide COAs on what is brought before all of you. Instead, it's sort of simply approving or disapproving or approving with conditions. And I realize that's a little strange because then, there's not this concrete document afterwards, but that was the purpose of the Architectural Review Committee, which is what the Historic District Commission is now filling the shoes of. And also, let's see, we talked about what standards those decisions should be made by, because there weren't standards named in the legal documents. And I shared the Secretary of Interior standards with Ron Vanderveen, and he said, yes, go ahead and use what standards you all deem appropriate for the situation. And I said, honestly, I don't know what else we would use. That seems to be...
That's kind of our way, that's kind of our beacon. Everything pivots off of the Secretary of Interior standards for us. And oftentimes we have long and deep discussions when when no standard fits what's being asked, and that makes us question whether what's being asked is really something that's in the best interest of the historic district.
Yeah, I agree. So even though the language around it is saying, well, this is not a COA review, it's still is kind of following the same principles, if that makes sense. But it was just interesting to hear, I guess, from the legal perspective, what is required of the commission. And then, finally that an executed option to purchase or a purchase agreement is required before any changes can be made.
I think going into this, I had the impression that we were meeting first to just kind of do a look at the project and maybe either sort of thumbs up, thumbs down to city council based on what we were seeing. Then they would take action to make changes in the covenant, or at least temporary. Then the party would come back to us for COAs. Is that not true, that they would then not come back to us?
They would come back to us.
But not for a COA.
But not for a COA.
Because it's not.
Okay, but that second part would still be enforced. That is, we could tell them they can't put up awnings. That was one thing that everybody kind of
I think we all kind of went.
Right, so we would still have, we just wouldn't call it a COA, but we would still have the ability to vote up or down
Yes.
on specific changes that they wanted to make. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
And I
it
think-
sounds that way because it says in here that we then become the de facto architectural review committee.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I just wasn't sure when she said it wasn't a
We could base
COA.
that second set of decisions on the standards.
Right, so
If
it's
they
really
apply.
like a COA,
But
we
I don't
just
think
don't
the
call.
standards apply to the question of, could this become a restaurant? Which
Right,
is the very
no,
first step.
but I think I guess we were gonna weigh in on, if the person said, we wanna gut the interior and do blah, 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 we're saying, we can't imagine that we would ever grant COAs
Right.
and giving them a preview so that, awnings might be they could live without having awnings, but if they couldn't do some other thing, like, I can't remember what would be a deal breaker, like turn the back into a kitchen or something, then it's just not gonna fly.
right. But it wouldn't be a COA for us because it's not actually part of the historic district.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, so
Unlike
that's,
the old hospital, which is, so even though there are covenants on that building, it is part of the historic district, and so therefore they'd have to have a COA if they wanted to do
Right.
anything.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, I just wanna make sure I understood everything too.
Okay, that's helpful, thanks a lot for, that will, it'll be interesting to see where that project goes.
Yeah.
I felt like he was, at least was out in your email, that he really needed that footage from Hope College.
Yeah, that's
And
the sticking point right there.
Yeah, and I'll be surprised if they give up that footage, but we'll see. I'm just not sure.
Yeah, that's what he shared with me as being
Yeah,
the reason
okay.
why they weren't moving forward. So.
Yeah.
It always comes down to something like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, something unrelated that,
That turns out to be related.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, any other questions for me on this one? Again, I haven't had much happen since
Yeah.
almost that day before when we had to cancel, but
I'm not about this, but I'm just surprised in general that we have not had more application. I mean, even last summer when
Yeah.
COVID was kind of was really like ramping up like wildfire, and everybody had been sent home and nobody was in school, so everyone was kind of like nesting back in, and investing in their homes. I'm just really surprised that we haven't seen that kind of, I mean, it was not unheard of to have 10 or 12 to go,
No, I totally agree.
There were, I mean, we'd be sitting here until 8 or 9 o'clock
Yeah.
some nights, so I'm just surprised.
On
Yeah.
the way down, I spoke with a commissioner for zoning, who said that they've had 2 meetings, right, with no,
Yep.
2 meetings in a row with no
No
applications.
applications
They're all
for the Board
puzzling
of Appeals, yeah.
over that, yeah.
Yeah, we canceled last month's and then September's, we didn't get any.
Do you think it's
So you
materials?
just cancel and they get to stay home?
Excuse me, I do not.
Yeah.
Nobody's
that's fine.
coming to the party, I will shut off the lights.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
if you can't hire a builder.
That's what I
you know,
wonder.
Yeah, for both cases.
Yeah.
Okay,
Has anybody walked by and seen the steps at Third Church?
Yeah.
I thought they looked really good.
really good.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
glad we,
Yeah,
Kinda
no,
kept
it
talking.
really has the feel of the old steps.
oh, good,
that-
I'm gonna go and look, I have not looked.
Yeah,
they even have the same pattern with.
yeah, which I think was really
Oh,
important,
nice.
Nick was pushing on that.
Yeah, he did, he really,
Yeah,
I'm so pleased.
yeah,
It's a
no, I
really- it's a-
think it was a
it's a
nice
positive.
solution, yeah.
Mhm.
It looks way better too, but, yeah. So,
to go walk by, time to walk it out.
it's fun to see projects that come to nice fruition,
Mhm.
you know.
I'm having fun seeing that, 240 West 9th jacked up in the air.
Oh,
It's been-
yeah.
That's, I'm like, I just love it, I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
this is gonna
I
be
wanna
so
do that to
good.
my house, but,
Yeah?
well, I mean, in a way, but
Get it.
they had the advantage that the whole house really needed everything, and
Sure.
so.
Right, not when you're living in it and then.
Right, well, yeah, not that, but when you think of just having to clean out the
Supposed to
basement,
wake your
even
wife
that
up.
would be, you know.
Supposed to wake- You're supposed to wake your wife up before you start raising.
That's
the
right,
family.
yeah.
Well, it's funny, because our neighbors at the end of the block are like, could we just like, and somebody did do this not far from us, they just, well, actually, like, Turf Swiss did it too. They hand dug out that basement, so that they gained the height in the basement by hand digging it out.
Oh, you mean they left the walls intact, but just
Yes,
cut
and then
through the
poured, yeah, and then
floor
came
and
in
then-
with, yep.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, for us, it's the brick walls that are kind of, starting to look a little. Yeah, well, that too, yeah. There are many of things that,
Down
to-
there with that
to,
dry lock,
yeah,
just slapping it on,
I
like,
know,
trying to
it's
hold the wall
just-
up with it.
yeah.
I feel ya.
I am jealous.
Okay, so that's a wrap. So does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Support.
Everybody, okay,
All
so
right.
when I call your name, yea or nay, Cook,
Yay.
Fowler, Ambers,
Yay.
Nieves is absent, Rolinski is absent, Shay.
Yay.
I also move to adjourn, motion adjourn.